it's up to her, and we're all about the paradox.
Yeah.
If it gets to our turn.
Yeah.
And her face is completely flat, and she just says, "Paradox." And then I just lost it. I just started shouting. I ran around the house. It was crazy. It was a crazy moment. Welcome everybody to Two Asians, One Board. This is our new podcast about board gaming. And as you guessed it, run by two Asians. We're your hosts. My name is Darren, and this is
Rio.
All right, and we are starting this new podcast to talk about board games. And we decided actually not to do reviews because, I don't know, that board game space is really saturated, right? Not only podcasts, but YouTube's.
A lot of YouTube videos.
A lot of YouTube videos on reviews. And, you know, with Kickstarter these days, they get the board games like 1 or 2 years in advance. Mm-hmm. And then you put out a review like 2 years later. Not really. I don't know.
It's not the most appetizing after. Or I guess there is technically a space to compare different things. But I do find that like the earlier you are in the game, the easier you can.
So we're going to do a podcast actually talking about other aspects of the board game hobby, and we'll talk a little bit later about some of the topics that we'll be talking about. But before we do that, let's introduce ourselves. So Rio, do you want to go first and introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Yeah, my name is Rio. I am from Japan originally, but I was raised quite all over the place in the Netherlands, in China, and Canada for the past 10 years or so, I've been playing all different sorts of board games or games in general in the different contexts that I have lived in. So it's like the more like traditional board games is something that I kind of really encountered more recently, and beforehand it was the cultural things that exist in the Asian side that I was playing, and I didn't know all the Western things that existed.
I think I was the evil person that introduced you to Eurogaming.
Yeah, 100%.
So how did that happen? Just tell people how this fateful episode happened.
It was on my wedding anniversary. Actually.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you guys came over to play games on your wedding anniversary.
It was, after we had our anniversary afternoon lunch / like late lunch, early dinner. We also had accidentally made plans to play board games with you that day, and we were like, well, we said yes, so we gotta
and you committed
through.
There's the commitment right there. I knew these guys are into it if they came on their wedding anniversary.
Yeah, so that was Wingspan that we played that night, and it's mostly the wife that really got into all the eggs and the cute nest that Wingspan came with, and also all the birds. And on our way back home that night, we were browsing on the internet, seeing where we can get one of those copies of the games ourselves. And we basically received a copy of Wingspan in 2 days' time, I think.
And so how long? That was probably, about a year ago?
About a year and a half?
A year and a half?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, and that was during the time when Wingspan was the hotness, and I was using it as a gateway game to get people hooked. And I think since then, you guys have used it many times in a similar manner.
We've influenced a number of friends, family to buy it or to gift it, and we haven't had a negative review from that so far, so I think it still truly holds a strong value as an intro game for people. Yeah,
for sure. That's probably why it's so popular.
What about yourself?
So I have been a gamer my whole life in various types, video gaming for sure, since the 80s with the Nintendo, and dabbling in board games more recently. I think before we had our kid, me and my wife would occasionally play some games with friends. We played, I think Agricola was one of our earliest games that we actually purchased many years ago. Still have it. And we even like kind of got all the special animal meeples and stuff for that game.
Nice.
We used to play a game called City of Horrors, which is about like surviving like a zombie, kind of like a party game almost. We played that once with a whole bunch of friends, but never really seriously into it. I used to play Magic the Gathering a lot in high school. I kind of redabbled in that.
Amazing,
I tried Netrunner, which was a great card game actually, but then they stopped making it. So I'm always dabbling. I used to go to like a local board game meetup, but never really got into the games. And then COVID had 3 silver linings for me anyway. Number one, showed me that I was working too much, so that's great. Secondly, introduced me to cycling. And then third, gave us a lot of time to play games. Nice. And I used to run a YouTube channel doing like tabletop gaming, so I had this elaborate stream set up in my basement. And so because we couldn't go anywhere, we actually set up a stream game with like overhead cameras and stuff to play with some friends of ours in Toronto. And we used to play every Saturday night, like on live stream, and then we ended up playing like Pandemic Legacy over the course of many months.
That's fantastic.
And we still meet up with them on some Saturdays to do online board gaming. But then we started playing, me and a couple of friends, Warhammer friends, we started playing Gloomhaven, again, online. And, you have to exchange components in that game, so I would dead drop them in my mailbox and they'd come and pick them up in the mailbox and sanitize them, so it was hardcore. And we played that for like a year and a half, virtually. We never played it in person.
To this day, never.
Well, we eventually kind of finished it, but we played that for like a year and a half through the thickest part of the pandemic.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And then my own family, we picked up Clank Legacy, and we played that for like whatever the 12 games it is. And we played other Legacy games as well. And then it kind of just steamrolled from there. And then we've just been grabbing a lot of games. Used to have some connections with suppliers, so used to get a lot of games just for promotional purposes. And you can ask my wife, when I get into something, I get into something. And so that's kind of what's happened. If you can look at the shelf in our basement over there.
That's incredible.
And then I like to get other people into it, and so you guys were easily convinced. And now what, we play like every Sunday. We try and play every Sunday night. Something.
Yeah, trying. I feel like we haven't had any repeats of a game yet at this point.
Yeah, it's been good. We should go back and repeat, but man, it's always nice to play new things.
Yeah.
And one of the joys of the board game hobby is actually opening the games.
I love opening a new game, and like the whole plastic wrap coming off of a game is something that I thoroughly enjoy, but not so much my wife. Like it's interesting where I think that I would need to wait until she is there to open a game, but then she doesn't show the amount of appreciation that I feel when I open a game.
My kid loves it.
Yeah.
And
nice.
I really like that suction and that noise when you first pull the lid off.
Yeah.
And it's like...
Yeah, the suspense.
It's like hard to get it off.
Yeah.
And then like popping the pieces, like that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's a little bit about ourselves. And we will definitely kind of hit on some of the things that we like to play. And actually, why don't we talk now about some recent games played?
Recent games played. Just last week, we were playing...
Yeah, you guys came over and we played Septima.
Septima together. Yeah, that was such a fun game. We recently also purchased a game called... or it wasn't a purchase, it was gifted by a friend of ours, which is essentially like an escape room type of game. And the name of that is slipping off my mind.
Is it one of the exit or unlock games? It was an escape room type
one
thing,
one of the unlock games. Yeah, there are many unlock games.
Yeah.
But we have never played it before, and just 2 days ago we played one of them, and we did terrible. Well, we went overtime. We didn't quite finish in the 1 hour that was given to us, but we had a blast. We also recently got Sherlock as one of the Sherlock Holmes as one of the games to do together. We like delved into too many like games that went against each other, and not too many that were co-op based or like heavily like supporting each other in it. Other than Spirit Island. Spirit Island is my wife's absolute favorite game. I'm okay about it, but
So what kind of games do you like?
that's a great question. I think one of the games that I've enjoyed the most, there are two actually. Both are relatively heavier Euro games. So Carnegie is one that I really thoroughly enjoyed. The balance between the charity side of things as well as building your own business is such a intricate balance that you need to find.
When we played that, maybe like a couple of months ago, or
Yeah. And Lisboa is another one that I am just trying to get anyone to play with me, but have been failing to do so.
We need to play that because I've also been trying to get people to play. I've played once with my daughter. I believe she beat me.
Yeah.
My daughter's 9 years old, by the way. She's a little bit of a board game savant. We need to play that like very soon. Actually, you're a bit behind on the Lacerda games. I have a few Lacerdas you haven't played yet.
Yeah, I do.
So do you tend to like the heavier Euro-style games then? Is that what you gravitate towards?
I would say so.
If you had all the time in the world?
If I had all the time in the world, and if I had like the brain that is required to do those heavy games, or sometimes I think it takes a couple of runs until you're comfortable with it. And I'm certainly not the fastest to get there either. The type of games in regards to those like Euro games tend to be a bit of mixture between Yu-Gi-Oh and then also Catan almost. That's how
Yu-Gi-Oh and Catan.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Yu-Gi-Oh is what I like. I spent way too much money on Yu-Gi-Oh in my childhood.
We all did stuff like that. Magic.
And it was something that I like, building your deck that like makes the most sense. Every card that you know is there for a purpose. Like there's that deck building aspect with a lot of the Euro games that I've played, and also then Catan. Like during the pandemic, like the initial part of the pandemic, I had a couple of friends that I would play Catan with almost like every other day.
Were they in your bubble?
They were in my bubble, yeah. We kept
your
each
Catan
other
bubble.
Close. My Catan bubble. We played virtually, we played in person. And I think that Catan will always hold a really special place in my heart as well. And I think the heavier Euro games really brings a lot of those aspects together. And yeah, it's once you figure it out, once things click in the game, there's nothing like it. It's awesome. Yeah.
I think I'm probably pretty similar, which is probably why we ended up playing so many games, because we like similar games, which I do tend to like the meaty, heavy Euro style games where it's more about strategy and tactics than about luck.
Yeah.
And I like a game where if you're better at it, you'll win.
Yeah.
So, somebody playing their first game shouldn't necessarily just be able to like beat you just because something went their way, right? And so I tend to gravitate toward games like that as well. Definitely to play with you. With the family, we play all different sorts of games. My wife tends to prefer slightly lighter games, and my daughter will just play whatever, I guess. But when you're playing with more people, it's a little bit different. We know we don't like co-op games, for example. We're not very cooperative on the game board, so we definitely don't like co-op games. And so even though I have every other Lacerda, I don't have the co-op one. Which was interesting because when we played Clank Legacy, it's kind of cooperative, but then somebody has to win too. So it was an interesting game. But definitely leaning more towards the heavier games.
That reminds me of Dead of Winter, actually, is one of the co-op games where there is also an assassin. So it's cooperative, but then if the assassin or like the single person that can get away with their objectives, then they win the game. So it's you're cooperatively working while there's one person that's constantly lying to your in the face. Like it's a fun game. As well.
We have this party game called Galapagos where you're kind of stuck on a desert island with a bunch of people and you can play up to like 12 players. And it starts off cooperative. You have to fish for food and get water and build a raft to get off the island before the storm hits. But then it becomes quickly apparent that not everybody can get off. And so then it starts to become uncooperative.
It's a survival, everyone is on survival mode.
So that's always a fun party game to break out when there's a lot of people around. So to your point, yeah, and one of the cool things about these games is if you play them more, you get better at it.
Yeah.
And like so recently, me and my daughter played Ark Nova about 4 times in like a 2-week span.
Wow.
Because we got the new Marine World expansion, which really makes the game better. It was already a great game.
Yeah.
And then just really getting into the meat and bones of like how to be really good at this game. And the game actually gets better and better the more you actually appreciate the complexity of the strategy in it.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, that's I recall the first time I've ever played Ark Nova with you and your daughter, and
that was a long time ago now. That must be one of the first games we played.
And I somehow won, I recall. And I didn't know what I did to win, but like the cards just kind of worked its magic to get to me, I guess. But I also think that was probably earlier on when you didn't quite understand the full strategy behind things.
Well, what we were doing back then is I would get a game, I would learn it, I'd play it with my daughter, and then we'd play with you. So we weren't much ahead of you in terms of how to play these games.
Which helped me feeling not too left out in the game as well, because I think a danger of playing the game too much is like it'll be hard to find someone that will be at the same level that can enjoy with you as well, right? Like it's
yeah. So yeah, I tend to gravitate towards those kinds of games as well. What kind of games don't you like? There's a kind of game where you just be like, I don't want to play that.
So it's something that it depends on who I play with. With my wife in particular, who is my gaming partner for life and pretty much like most of the games that we play.
Where you're just stuck. You're just stuck.
Yeah,
right?
we're stuck with one another and we're playing games together. So chess-like games is something that I realized that it's not that I don't like it. I just know that if I play against her, I will lose with great certainty. And what like the fun kind of gets sucked out of it the moment I already know from the get-go that she is 7 ahead.
Wasn't that happening with Wingspan where like you just couldn't win? It's like repeatedly losing.
That happened with Wingspan as well for a couple of times, but then I started to get a hang of it myself as well. And most recently for her birthday, I actually got her How You Killed Me, or that time you killed me. Which is basically like a chess type of game where you are going through 3 dimensions of like the past, present, and the future, and you're time traveling and trying to kill your opponent in every way possible. And I somehow won once, and I don't think I will ever win again in that game against my wife now that she fully understands the rules. So I think that's the type of game that I should just, I guess, practice and get good at, but also at the same time, at this point in time, at my skill level against my wife, I do not like playing chess-like games at the moment, or strategy games like as such.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about yourself? Do you have any games that you dislike in particular that you would?
I'm not actually a big fan of deduction type games like Werewolf or like Avalon, where you have to like try and figure out if somebody's lying or blushing. I'm not a good bluffer. I'm never good at poker. I can't read people's faces, and I'm just not good at those kinds of games, and so I don't really enjoy playing them.
Yeah.
I don't mind party games, but those kind of social deduction type games, I don't really like those.
Yeah.
I don't like anything that involves too much rolling.
Yeah.
Although I don't mind if it involves rolling, but there are strategic ways of mitigating bad rolls.
Like Castle of Burgundy, I think is fantastic.
I think that's fine to have rolling and to have dice, but you need to be able to do something with crappy luck. Yeah. Otherwise, it just feels bad.
Yeah, it just feels like there's no control over it, and you just
Yeah. Actually, we had a game recently of a game called Rolling Heights. And what's interesting about that game, you don't roll dice, is you roll meeples.
Oh.
So it's kind of fun. Like, it's totally luck, right? Like, you're just rolling these meeples and you hope they stand up. But it's kind of fun because you're just rolling meeples and you have to decide. You have ways of re-rolling, and you have to, it's a little bit of push your luck, and then you have to decide, because you can only roll 10 at a time at the most. So you have to decide which meeples you want to roll on any particular turn. So actually, that all distracts you from the fact that you're just random rolling meeples into a box.
Right.
But so there's a little bit of a twist on the dice rolling. But yeah, I generally don't like where you just have to like roll dice, and I guess that may be why you eventually stopped playing Warhammer, because like it can just be so, you just feel really bad when your dice are not going that way, and those are kind of the main games. I'm pretty game to play anything, to be honest. I'll give everything a chance. But I tend to stay away from those kind of games. Like, if I have a choice of want to buy one.
Yeah, something that I realized recently that I didn't think I would like, that I did like more than I thought, is Mind Management. It's essentially a hidden movement game. I hadn't played any hidden movement games up until that game, and so far technically I've only played solo mode against the computer, because I've not been able to convince anyone to play with me yet.
We gotta get it on.
But it's such a fun feeling to be the one, especially to be the one hiding and try to find your way, or even deduction, like the detective work of finding out where someone is and getting close and feeling that suspense is something that I don't think many other forms of games is able to create, especially on a board game setting. So that's something that I recently discovered that I liked without knowing it existed.
Yeah, we need to play that, because I looked at that game long and hard to say, do I want this game, when it was first out, and it had really good reviews. I'm like, oh, I don't know if I really like that kind of. It's kind of like social deduction, like the hidden movement aspect of it.
Yeah.
But now you got it, we're definitely going to try it. So
100%.
Yeah.
It's slightly different from the the deduction is more, you actually get to find the clues that are on the map. So it does feel there's less guesswork and actual detective work almost that you can put in. So and it's like counting cards. Like, once if you're really aware of all the things that people have, like people visited, or the person that's trying to get away visited, then you can deduct them, like, to pinpoint it, but it's hard to remember the things.
Do you think that, because one of the reasons that social deduction is a problem for me is I think you can learn how people play, especially if you play with the same people or they're your friends or family. Do you think that game would suffer from that?
So actually
like the same person's always going to do the same thing, you know what I mean? Like,
right, yeah. I think it tries to mitigate that by having people with special powers, special abilities, where you can, like, teleport to a certain space from one place to another, which makes it harder for the detectives that are trying to catch the thief, or I don't know exactly the words right now, but there are aspects that really they worked on to make it a little bit more interesting. So I would say it's. I wouldn't think that it's a game that you would play every single day for, like, the rest of your life. It's a once in a while type of game, because definitely once you get a hang of how people play or how people move, like, you can make easier predictions of it.
Okay. Do you have a standout moment from your recent gaming that you really, really enjoyed or felt really accomplished?
I think, an accomplishment per se, but I think Kampan EV was my very first Vital Lacerda game, and Ian O'Toole game that I've played, and that was just like a mind-blowing experience.
I think you won that game, right?
I won that game as well. That helped to make that experience a positive one. But like, if you've, like, for anyone listening, if you have never played a Vital Lacerda game, it's just a true work of art that it's the biggest board games I've ever seen, with your own very personal board that has inserts that are just beautifully done. The whole process is very logical. There are very logical things to do, but also at the same time, there's so much to do. Kanban even in particular, I just didn't know that such intricacy in a board game existed. So
I think winning a Lacerda game definitely feels good.
Yeah,
because you put in a lot of time.
Yeah,
so it's good to come out at the end of that and just feel
3 hours later.
Yeah, I won. Great, that's awesome. But also especially if you feel like it was all clicking the way you expected it to, or you didn't just kind of fluke it out, then that feels good to be able to put that together because it's just like a big puzzle.
Getting ahead of Karen, basically, I was able to predict where Karen was going to be to
Sandra.
Never mind. Karen is. Karen was.
No comment about Karen.
Yeah, okay. No comment about Karen. Sandra is the one that was after my butt.
Yeah. I've like two moments I guess that stand out. One is before we had our kid, we played with a couple of friends of ours and her brother Game of Thrones board game. Yeah, if you've ever played this game, it is a very epic long game. We played from like middle of the afternoon to like 2 or 3 in the morning.
Oh my goodness.
And I don't even remember who won. I don't think I won. It kind of didn't matter. We were just glad to finish. And that just felt like an accomplishment to actually finish that game. So that was one. And then the other one was actually when we played Cat in the Box.
Cat in the Box,
Oh, this is a great moment. It doesn't actually have anything to do with me, but we were playing Cat in the Box. And if you're playing Cat in the Box, it's a trick-taking game where you have to just play tricks like normal, but you can decide what kind of suit the card is when you play it, but you can't obviously repeat the card. And so there will come a time in the round when a person won't be able to play a card because that card the number is already assigned and the color's already been taken or whatever. And so that's called a paradox. And so I remember we were playing us and you and your wife, and then she took about 5 or 10 minutes at the beginning of that round thinking about what to play, like in complete silence. And then the final trick of the round, it's up to her, and we're all about the paradox. If it gets to our turn, and her face is completely flat, and she just says paradox, and then I just lost it. I just started shouting. I ran around the house. It was crazy. It was a crazy moment.
I recall that moment. You just running around and just because the tension was high.
Yeah, the tension was super high. We were thinking, she's just thinking about what to play, and I don't know if she knew she was paradoxing minutes before and just held it in. But it was it was a great moment.
I recall that moment as well, and I think. A couple of days after we bought Cat in the Box, so we were like, although she paradoxed, although she was in like a big, she dug herself into a really deep hole where I think she never came out of, but we did thoroughly enjoy Cat in the Box.
It's a great game. It's a great game.
Such a fun game.
So like other games I've played recently, so me and my daughter, we try and play games a lot if we can. I've recently picked up some games. Bitoku. Actually, we've been on a bit of a Japanese theme binge recently. So we just played this game called Bitoku, which is basically a worker placement game, point salad-y, very beautiful game. It seems very difficult to play, but actually it's very easy to play. So that was enjoyable. We've had another Japanese themed game, The White Castle, which of course the White Castle is referring to Himeji Castle. And so that's kind of just like a smaller version of Bitoku. It's dice placement and it's tight because you only get 9 turns. And so you really gotta, it's very crunchy. So you think, it's only 9 turns. This game will be over in no time. But you think about it. And so it's a deceptively small but crunchy game. And then another Japanese themed game we got recently was Iki, which we have to play again. We didn't really get a chance to play that more than once.
I saw some pictures. It looked
another beautiful game with
very Japanese themed.
Exactly. So
art.
And then, of course, we played Septima last weekend, which I love. That game is great. It has some interesting elements to it. The artwork is amazing, and it's just a nice... it's just a great game. Yeah. Darwin's Journey we got recently. I think I waited like a year and a half to finally get that game.
Yeah.
And that's a nice, crunchy, again, worker placement game. Of course, we played Ark Nova like 4 times.
Yeah.
Love it every time. One of my top 3 games probably for sure. We played a few weeks ago. We played Hegemony. Devoted a whole afternoon.
It was a game.
That was a game. Hegemony is a game, and I was teaching my daughter how to play that, and I had to, before I could do that, I had to teach her about concepts like capitalism and neoliberalism, and
it's such a good. It's so true, and the gameplay holds like really true to what each of those the working class, the capitalists, the government, like. It's all so
like it's a difficult game to learn, but actually it really makes sense what you're doing during the game, and the rules make sense. There's nothing that's there just for game's sake. It's like you want more working workers, you need to raise immigration. So it all actually makes a lot of sense. It's a great game. I hope we can get that on the table.
I recall being the working class. I needed more immigrants, or more people to be on my side, and they never showed up because of the policies that were in place that were not in my favor.
Yeah. That was a great game. I recently introduced some of our colleagues to gaming using... I've switched from Wingspan now to Viticulture as my gateway game, another Stonemaier game. Super, not that difficult, but a nice strategic worker placement game. Easy to get a hold of, easy to play, great game, and also great to play with a glass of wine.
I believe that was the second game that you introduced to us after Wingspan. And the week after we played Viticulture, and we almost got Viticulture as well, but we held back until we've had a couple of Wingspan play under our belt as well. But,
and I received just yesterday, I saw it on Etsy, so a game we played a while ago, Obsession, yes, which is a surprisingly fun game set in Victorian England. And actually, that's a theme that actually is very rare in the board game world. And so if you like Downton Abbey and stuff, this is right up your alley. But it's a really interesting game, but it has a whole bunch of meeples that are colored. But so what I got off Etsy is actually a bunch of stickers. That you put on the meeples on both sides that makes the servant meeples look like the servants.
Oh, really? You can...
I'll have to show you, but I don't know why I got it. It was like $5 or something, but I just thought, that would make this game even more immersive, because it's kind of a game where when you're playing it, you can't help but talk in an English accent and kind of read all the fluff text on the card, the guest
so
cards.
Much context in it.
Yeah, because it's like, oh my god, this gets... And you really kind of get into it thematically. It's quite a thematic game in terms of the rules too, and so now with the little stickers on the meeples, it would be even more thematic. So
it's also the pictures of each of those cards that just have those faces and old-looking photos on it that makes it so it feels real when it comes to the parties and all the gents and gals that are there.
So they recently, Kayenta came out with an expansion for Obsession, and there were 2 previous expansions. So now I got all the stickers for the extra meeples, but I don't have the expansions. So now I'm like, maybe I need to get the expansion. I got the stickers already.
I hear that the box already has the expansion in mind as well, right?
Well, that's the amazing thing, because Dan Halligan, I think he's the designer, and he designed it so the original box holds everything. And so in my original box right now, there are empty boxes that are designed to hold the expansions. And he has videos on his YouTube. Here's how you pack it.
That's just fantastic. That's just like a next level design.
That is next level. Because sometimes when you get an expansion, you're like, oh, this is not going to fit, right?
You need an extra box to...
And that's annoying because then if you get it to fit, what do you do with the extra box? And you keep the extra box. I still have Wingspan boxes laying around that are empty. So... I'm toying with getting those expansions now, because that will also kind of open up the game. It doesn't really add extra mechanics. It just gives you more options in terms of families and stuff, which I like. Speaking of expansions and things, so let's talk a little bit about, just to let people, this is the pilot episode, so we're just, this episode we're just talking about ourselves and letting people know what we're doing and who we are.
Yeah.
But just, some of the things that we're going to be talking about, some of the topics that we've come up with to cover on our podcast. So we're going to go over various things like maybe certain kinds of mechanics in games that we like and don't like. Why do we like board gaming so much? Like from a visceral kind of point. Like we said, we like to open the games. Is that one big reason why we like board games? Well, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like getting an iPhone almost like every other month, which is does not happen. It happens like once every numbers of years, but
that is true. Opening the phone has that same feeling because of the packaging.
The packaging, everything there, and getting something new that smells new and that has that new feeling. I think there is something about that.
Yeah. I came across an interesting topic that we'll definitely cover that was on a YouTube video, enemies of gaming. What stops people from playing board games, getting into it or playing more often? So that's an interesting topic that we want to cover.
That's a great question. Yeah.
We're going to talk about expansions, pros, cons. Do you need them?
Yeah.
Going to talk maybe about certain designers. I think we definitely need to do like a Lacerda episode.
Yes.
Because his work definitely deserves an episode of its own.
Yeah.
I really want to do an episode talking about Kickstarter and crowdfunding and how that kind of maybe impacts the enjoyment of board games, or whether you actually get into them, or actually whether you can buy them these days.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of stickers, we'll definitely do a episode on components, favorite kinds of components, least favorite kind of components. Do you need deluxe components? How many deluxe components do you need? My daughter's in the corner. She's got thumbs up on deluxe components.
Thumbs up on deluxe components. It makes a difference to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll talk about art styles. We'll talk about inserts. We're going to talk about all sorts of things about board games other than doing reviews, which I think is really interesting and going to be fun to talk about. Yeah. Oh, we got to talk about analysis paralysis for sure.
Analysis paralysis. My wife will be a guest.
She's going to be guest of honor on that episode. Guest of honor
on that for sure.
As a flag flying AP expert.
Yeah.
I want to talk about sportsmanship, salty gaming, that kind of thing. Recently, I've been watching the live stream games from the World Series of Board Gaming, which, if you don't know, is like basically what it is. It's like a championship of board gaming that they hold in Vegas every year.
Yeah.
And so those people are there to win. I mean, the prize money is like $25,000 or something.
Board gaming professionals.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's not anything to sniff at. And so the sportsmanship level, from what I can see, is super high. Whereas in other kinds of gaming, for example, Warhammer, sportsmanship has at some points been very low, even while people are on stream. So, what's the difference? Like what makes people salty in one time in a game and not salty in another time?
What caused that cultural difference, I guess, almost. Between
and one thing I really want to talk about is luck. How much luck is okay, how much is too much, too little. Every game has some element of luck.
100%, yeah.
You have to, actually, I think you can't have a game that has no element of luck, because then you solve it and it's over.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there is something about board games that have too little luck involved as well. So there's definitely a balance where a board game is just not going to be as enjoyable as it would have been if there was a slightly more random component in it.
Yeah. So that's just kind of a quick idea of just some of the episodes and topics that we're going to be covering. Where the normal structure won't be as kind of loose as it is today. We'll cover our recent games, and we'll kind of dive straight into the topic of discussion.
Yeah.
And then I'd like to invite people to send us questions or leave us feedback wherever you hear our podcast. Leave us comments and questions. You can reach us at social media. We are starting out limited, so you can see us on Instagram at 2asians1board. I think that's the Instagram, right?
Yeah.
We got some posts going on there. We have a YouTube channel, and we're debating whether we'll upload the podcast as like a video file, just, I don't know, with a logo or something. We decided not to film it as a video cast.
At this point in time, I think, it's something that we're considering still. It's,
Maybe eventually we'll expand into doing live games and stuff, because I still have all the streaming set up.
Yeah.
But for now, we're just going to focus on putting out good podcast content, but we've got our YouTube channel ready to go.
Yeah.
And we haven't even started a Facebook page yet, and I don't know if we will, but
Facebook,
definitely
LinkedIn.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things. I'm gonna start TikToking. I don't know.
TikToking, yeah.
But yeah, definitely reach out to us, questions and listener feedback. More comments, it helps people find the podcast.
Yeah.
And subscribe and follow along. And any last minute comments before we wrap up this intro show?
Like, subscribe, and see you on the next one, I think, is what people tend to end on, eh? I have watched many, but I haven't really made any myself in regards to podcasts and whatnot. So very much looking forward to this.
Yeah, definitely follow and subscribe, and we'll see everybody in the next episode.